Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Adam Smith Institute for today's Lunchtime seminar, as Julian said, co-sponsored by the excellent International Policy Network. I'm Tom Clougherty, Executive Director of the ASI, and it's basically my job to ask you to switch all your phones to silent, please, and to introduce today's speaker. Dan Ikenson is Associate Director of the Center for Trade Policy Studies at the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C., and he's worked on trade issues since 1990. Dan is a prolific author, a regular media commentator, and a real expert in his field. So I'm absolutely delighted to have him here at the ASI today. Our topic this afternoon is Us versus Them, the global economy in an age of economic nationalism. Dan's going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then there'll be plenty of time left over for questions and discussion. So, Dan, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Julian, thank you. And Philip Salzer and Alec Van Gelder, thank you guys for setting this up and inviting me here. I've been in communication with IPN for a while. They published my paper, as Julian mentioned. And I told Alec a few weeks back, maybe a month or so, that I'd be going to Europe for an OECD event, which happened in Germany. And he said, well, pop into London and we'll try and set something up. And this is the product of that. And I have to say, this is a good place to sort of decompress on my way back home. I feel like I'm on kindred ground here. I was participating in an OECD transport conference where the topic was the social consequences of transportation, meaning even though transportation into the hinterlands has helped to raise hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, has created all sorts of opportunities for people, there are consequences that we need to be worried about, like job loss and the spread of disease and things like that. That was a little too negative for my take, so I'm glad to be here. I'm writing a paper which IPN is hopefully going to be publishing for me, and it's all about global supply chains. And basically the theme is that global supply chain, the world is no longer us versus them. The world is characterized more by a competition of supply chains. And the problem is that policy has failed to keep up the pace, to keep up with that reality. During the past few decades, a division of labor on a truly global scale has emerged, presenting opportunities for specialization and collaboration and exchange that affirm and might even astonish Adam Smith himself. The confluence of falling trade barriers, revolutions in communication and transportation, the opening of China to the West, the fall of the Berlin Wall, have all created vast potential for wealth gains and for improvements in living standards. These changes have created what is being called the death of distance. So under the new paradigm, the factory floor is no longer contained within four walls and one roof. The factory floor spans the globe. This allows lead firms to set up production facilities in one country, the next operation in another, and it really allows us to take advantage of the division of labor. It's no longer accurate to characterize competition as us versus them. Because of foreign investment, because of joint ventures, because of transnational supply chains, quite often we are they, and they are we. As a result of the proliferation of disaggregated production, transnational supply chains, we and they are often collaborating in the same endeavor. Workers in emerging economies are very often complementary to workers in developed countries. Competition is less likely to feature our producers against their producers. They're more likely to feature entities that really defy a national identification. There is competition between supply chains, but in order for that competition to flourish, there has to be competition, there has to be collaboration and cooperation within supply chains first. There have been signs that policymakers maybe are coming to understand this, to understand that maybe trade policies based on mercantilist assumptions no longer fit the global setup. However, the financial crisis, I think, and subsequent global recession are testing that understanding. Shuttering businesses, rising unemployment, and other signs of a recession have caused governments to sort of abandon that perspective. In some cases, governments have raised trade barriers, subsidized industries, supported national champions, imposed lending, local lending requirements or local hiring requirements. But by indulging these reflexive, populist, once considered vanquished ideas, politicians are likely to make matters worse while reinforcing antiquated assumptions about how the economy actually works. That's basically the theme of the paper and the talk. I'm going to fill in some of the blanks now. I want to tell you, I have a lot of US examples because that's my area of expertise, but it really applies to other countries as well. But the demise of two iconic American manufacturers, car manufacturers, GM and Chrysler, has given the president an opportunity to appeal to US economic patriotism. He claimed recently, if you are considering buying a car, I hope it will be an American car. Now, ignoring for the moment the impropriety, I think, of the president tipping the scales and advising consumers to buy one way or the other, we have there's another tricky question here. Matt Slaughter, who's an economist at Dartmouth, he's written in the Wall Street Journal an editorial that says this. He tries to elucidate this way. What exactly makes a car American? Does it mean a car made by a US headquartered company? If so, then it is important to understand that any future success of the big three will depend a lot on their ability to make and sell cars outside the United States, not in it. A big reason Chrysler has fallen bankrupt is its narrow focus. It has not boosted revenues by penetrating fast-growing markets such as China, India, and Eastern Europe, nor has it lowered costs by restructuring to access talent and production beyond North America. Well, the incredulous and angry reactions we've seen from labor unions, their patrons in Congress, from radio talk show hosts, other agitators, would suggest that that definition of a US car is not universally accepted. For those who object to GM's plans, GM has recently announced that it's going to ship more production over to China and Mexico as part of its revitalization plan. These people don't seem to understand that in order to create economic activity in the United States, in order to perhaps have scope for job creation in the United States, the companies need to advance their bottom lines. So perhaps people who are skeptical of that definition might be more willing to embrace a different definition that Slaughter asks. Or is an American car one made within US borders? If so, then it is important to understand that America today has a robust automobile industry thanks to insourcing. In 2006, foreign headquartered multinationals engaged in making and wholesaling motor vehicles and parts employed 402,000 Americans at an average annual compensation of $63,000, 20% above the national average. Amid the big three struggles of the past generation, insourcing companies like Toyota, Honda, Mercedes have greatly expanded automobile operations in the US. In the fiscal year 2008, Toyota assembled 1.66 million motor vehicles in North America with production in 7 US states, supported by research and development in 3 more. But many Americans, including those who reject the first definition, also reject this definition of a US car as well. Ironically, the people who are inclined to oppose the first definition because it ships jobs overseas also oppose the second definition because it ships profits overseas. It doesn't matter that these companies are providing jobs, good-paying jobs, that they support the local economies, that they invest in local charities, support local softball teams. What holds sway is the fact that some of the profits are repatriated in Tokyo or Seoul or Stuttgart. The truth of the car business, though, is that it transcends national identification. It's very often cars produced by what we call Detroit automakers are less American than cars produced by the foreign transplants based on the definition, the content definitions laid out by the US government. I would conclude that there is a grudging acceptance among Americans that perhaps these foreign in-source companies are part of the manufacturing landscape, are part of the American landscape. But I think it would be impossible to imagine the government coming to the rescue of Toyota or Honda or Kia had they presented in similarly dire financial straits to Chryslers and GMs.